Hello, good evening, and welcome to a very special edition of the Thursday Tea Room. Let me first introduce you to the guys we've got in the panel. We've got the right-hand man, Palm. Hello, Palm.
Evening, Tiggers. Evening, all.
We have Pocket Watch Time. Good evening.
Hey, hey, hey.
We have Sam from Casual Watch Reviews. Hello, Sam.
Hi, John.
And tonight,
evening all.
And tonight we have very special guest. We have Mike Pearson from Zodiac Watches, who is the brand director. So let's just bring him in. Hello, Michael.
How you doing? That was exciting music.
Thank you. Welcome to the tea room.
Thank you very much.
No problem at all. So, how's business for you at the moment, sir? Okay.
It's been non-stop. I've been with the brand for a few months now, and it just feels like every day there's more and more to do. But that's why we do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a bit of history about yourself and how you ended up at the position where you are now within Zodiac Watches, please?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the watch industry since about 2006. I worked for a small company that was owned by LVMH, who promoted watches and jewelry out in the duty-free market. And from there, I moved into a small brand called Ernst Benz when I moved to America in 2007. That gave me some incredible insight into the watch industry, especially the size that Ernst Benz was. But also we launched the brand really during the recession of 2008. So that was a bit stupid, but it also is fight or flight, and you learned a lot of the good habits. And then a few years after that, I met Nick and Giles of Bremont in Basel, and that became the biggest part of my career. And I spent almost a decade with them. I left watches when I got married and had children because there was no room for two loves in my life. But I've been pulled back into watches now after consulting for a while by the Fossil Group to lead this resurgence of what Zodiac could be. And it's been absolutely incredible. So I've been doing this now for about 6 months. I've just moved from the UK back to the US to do this. And it feels pretty fantastic. I'm still massively homesick, if I'm honest with you, about leaving the UK. But my wife's American and the kids start school next week. And so in terms of life and professional, it all feels like it's lined up really well. But for the future, all that I've done in the past 15, 16 years kind of feels like it's the right experience that I've had for what this brand now needs.
Excellent. So when did Fossil take over then? How long have Fossil been involved with the company?
A long while, actually, since 2001. But the brand was family owned for almost 100 years. And it started in 1882, and it was owned by the Calumet family from the Laloc region up until the 1980, around there. And it was mishandled. Well, it wasn't mishandled, but it was taken over by two companies over the 80s and then the 90s. And then we bought it in 2001. And the Fossil Group, and I say this with all respect to the world, to the group, is they didn't quite know what they had on their hands. So if you see some of those very early Zodiac watches, it looks very plasticky and a little bit fun. But that's what Fossil have done so well. And obviously Fossil is, for many of us, our first watch. But they kind of, to their credit, they pulled back and they said, right, this watch deserves more than this. And they pulled it all the way back. And then the investment started. And so what I've jumped into is this brand that now knows where it's from. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to give it a helping hand to be the brand that maybe it deserves to be, with the size it was, the different watches that it was. And so I'm very excited for that, because the word that keeps coming to my mind is that they look at themselves as custodians to the brand. Whereas before it might be, well, what can we do with it? Now it's like, well, what should we do with it? And that for me is really important.
Yeah, and Zodiac's history, it's got some serious dive watch history going on, hasn't it? Did they make the first automatic dive watch, or the first automatic?
It was the first commercially available dive watch, skin diver. So they did that in 1953 at the Basel Fair. Us, Glycine and Blancpain with the 50 Fathoms came out, and then Rolex after that. But that era of dive watches was huge. But what it did for Zodiac is it springboarded them. I mean, they've been around for 70 years before that. And this is one thing with the Seawolf, is it has a huge part of us, but a lot of people don't realize what was before. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to bring to the future. Mm-hmm. But for the Seawolf and what it did for us, it brought the American military and a lot of militaries around the world, because it was respected, because the watch went deeper and had this aesthetic, unlike other watches that were out there and released at the same time. But we were the official watch alongside some of the big brands out there in the PX, during Vietnam and Korea, and it is still sold in the PX today, which is the military shop, which is around the US and the world. But that also then helped them understand where their place was. And into the 60s and the 70s, they again wanted to do things that were unique. So the mystery dials or the manta ray cases, it's never just been about dive watches, but that is the biggest, it is still the biggest thing that we did, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I saw a little bit of you yesterday on Revolution watches. You were on their Instagram. And
their connection was terrible. They had a hailstorm. So
oh, well, I heard most of it. It turned out just fine, at least on this end. But I was happy to hear that pretty much you're kind of going in a new direction with the brand, which I think is great because, kind of like Sam was saying, you guys have a lot of provenance that I just don't think a lot of people know about. You're as early into the dive scene as, the Submariner and the 50 Fathoms. But it sounded like you guys are just going to start moving into new case materials and sort of some new ventures, which as a metal man myself, that speaks to me. So I kind of wanted to hear a little bit about that, since I caught the tail end of what you were talking about on Revolution, and if you could introduce it to the audience here, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Banu is one of the main writers for Revolution, and so we sent him to Switzerland to meet Chris Moreau, who builds our watches. He's our chief of everything, really. So he's the gentleman that ties STP, which is the movement manufacturer that we own, and we own Antima, which is where they build the watches. And so he makes sure that everything can fit and sit and is designed right. The lovely thing about Chris as well is he's also touched a lot of what Fossil has done in the past. So he knows the things not to do with a brand like this because of the region that we're in. And so when we come up with these fantastic ideas, or we listen to brilliant partners, it's Chris who will lead that team to make the watches like you see today. And so we thought it was the right thing to do to bring Banu to Switzerland, because if I do one of these podcasts, or I do any of the shows and the live shows like a Worn and Wound or a show inside of a store, or I'm talking one-on-one with a consumer, most people like me before joining the brand had their preconceived ideas about what Zodiac was. And sometimes it can be a negative about being owned by Fossil. And my idea, or my word has always been, well, do you look bad on Omega because they're owned by Swatch? I mean, there's a way of kind of looking after the best of you. And this, in a different level, obviously, is not coaxial or meta testing, but it is STP, and it is in-house, and it is 44-hour power reserve with anti-shock and anti-magnetic qualities. But in terms of looking at the brand overall, if we can get this next part right with the metals and the stories without just being that brand that does really cool, colorful watches, I think we can really let people understand who we are. And so for this year, our 140th year, instead of coming out with one watch and saying, happy birthday us, aren't we amazing? Because we as a company have not, and this is Fossil, have not owned the brand for its entirety. So why should we think that watch is what's befitting of the brand? So when we do this is a titanium Pro Diver, and we've got other metals and other case materials and other dial materials coming. I think what we can do now is kind of set the stall for the future about what the next 140 years could be. That's why we're doing it. So it's kind of, this year is like reset. We've had a really good push in the last few years, been really cool limited editions and good colorways. But if we get this next bit right, I think it'll stand us in good stead to grow, because we only make 6,000 watches currently. And back in the 70s, we were making a couple of 100,000. So it's just nuts, the difference.
Can you give us any hints to any of those metals?
You love, I would really, do you know what? Yesterday in the Revolution thing, they kind of hinted and showed very quickly a dial that's going to be made of meteorite.
I saw that.
And that was not meant to be shown.
They got an exclusive.
Nice though. Yeah, exclusive.
So can I just ask you, Michael? Sorry, Ian's just asking. Ian Nicholson, one of the channel's supporters, he's asking if there's any plans for re-releasing or reissuing any of the old vintage pieces. Because Pocket there, he's got an old vintage Zodiac. I mean, I'll just make him full screen a minute so he can show you. That's what
mystery dial.
So I got a little astrographic mystery dial.
Me and you, man.
So
have you got any plans to reissue that model, maybe?
We have, so if you look at what we've done this year, it just got released this week. We are making the Olympus story a bigger part of what's coming into to right now. And so the Seawolf is massive. We've got a lot of the diving watches, but we need that dress and that field style. So the Olympus will do that. Next year, there will be something re-released from the past, which will satisfy, hopefully, the Zodiac vintage collectors. And I think that for me is a massive thing, because they're the ones that really believe what the brand was. And they've seen these last 30, 40 years of going, what is Zodiac? And do they know what it used to be? And I think if we can re-release some of those pieces and have complete respect of where it's come from, I think we can get everybody understanding this direction is correct. So, Ian, we will try not to let you down, but I think you'll enjoy what's coming. But I can't say just yet, 'cause it's way down the line into next year.
Michael, I think it's worth because when I was researching Zodiac when we spoke on my channel, what was still a mystery to me was the STP movements.
Right.
And when I looked into them, they're actually quite sophisticated, aren't they? They're based on the 2824 ETA, but you've enhanced the mainspring in there for the battery life, for the not the battery life,
Power
the life,
reserve.
they extended the hourly rate, and then you've got the swan neck regulation on there as well.
So swan neck,
Power reserve.
that was a massive thing when we did the swan neck, but that's going to actually go away. We don't need to do that anymore with more iterations of what we've done within the STP 1-11. It was a really cool thing to do as we were growing. We had another module, it's a 313. But what we've been able to do with this 1-11 is really refine and hone in what our base model will be. So if you look at, say, I've got lots of little watches. This is the Skin 53. This is what I would say is the best of us. It's a 39mm dive watch. It's based off of what we did in 1953. But that's $1,195, and that's got the 1-11. All of the compression, they have the 1-11, and so does the Olympus. So you get our in-house movement in about 70% of our collection right now. 44-hour power reserve, anti-magnetic, and we've also got a little, not a full Faraday cage, but you've got some anti-magnetic qualities because of how we've surrounded the movement with the case. And that's in just about every single one of the Zodiacs. We still do buy in Solita and Soprod for some of our models, and we needed them because as we're growing appropriately, but we wanted the best movement to suit the price point and the quality that we want to go forward. The Soprod we use for our GMT and World Timer, nice little exclusive for the future. We are going to get rid of that in the nice way and phase it out and bring in the STP 1-11 with a module that can help it be a GMT. And then with our Solita that we use for the pro divers, it's very hard to find them right. It's very hard to buy them in. And so that in the end will be able to be chronometer certified for our pro divers. We wanted to make sure this was good because this is our strongest 300-meter dive watch. So we ISO certified it, we chronometer certified it. And so it worked for us. But hopefully yourself and the viewers and the listeners can see or understand that we don't want to run before we walk. The 313 and the 1-11, they are great movements based off of workhorses in the industry. But because we are owned by who we're owned by, if they can keep on investing within that movement, we get the chance to be better. And so, like I said, we build about 6,000 watches currently. By the end of next year, we could grow that if we get our sums right to about 10,000 watches, which is really good because we can then grow into retail, which is we're only in about 20 points of sale across the world. We're going to open up about 5 to 10 US stores, a couple in the UK, and then we're going to look after the ones that are in Europe currently. And we're also going into Canada, any Canadian listeners now, with a couple of stores. But that's it for the next 18 months. If we get that bit right, then we add those watches, we can then grow and not let anybody down. And I do think that in the past, because we are owned by a very large corporation that can go globally, that there's that appetite to want to do that for Zodiac. I don't think we can. I don't think we should yet. So that movement, if we got it right, we can then recreate it on a bigger scale, and then we move with growth. It's a plan. Hopefully, it's a plan.
I've got another question from Ian. He says, may I suggest with a brand history of 140 years, would the publishing of a book fully detailing the watches from the beginning be possible? Maybe a limited edition collector's item?
So
like history, like a watch history book on them.
I'm slowly, as you're asking the question, moving some watches that are here for a book that has been written on our behalf by a gentleman called
Oh,
Yuri
wow.
Vakulenko. So this
wow.
gentleman is a Canadian-Ukrainian watchmaker in, I think, Calgary. And he has documented just about every single dial, hand, bezel case that he could find. And this is volume 1. He's also had
wow.
the ability to find some of our old advertisements, some of those
I'll
old...
tell you what, Mike, if I put you on full screen and you can
Sure.
show us the book and go through the watches as well, that might be
Yeah, I'd
quite
love
interesting
to.
for the viewers, actually.
Yeah,
I'll just put you on full screen.
nice one, Palm.
So sorry, I've got this big pink face now. But this is the watch. It's called Collecting Vintage Zodiac Watches. Yuri Vakulenko. He's on Instagram, so give him a follow. But he did this on his own back, so he could find some of the old advertisements that we used to do. And then if you go to the front of the book, here's a good page just to kind of show some of the dive watches. He has not only just documented in terms of how they look, he's also found reference numbers,
wow.
dial colors,
Wow,
all of the different movements that are in there.
Done his homework there.
He is, and then this is what I like when you go to these types of pages, when you find in the different hand styles that we've got. And he's done that with numerals and markings and date wheels. So seek out Yuri. So this is the thing. We, as a brand and owning it, we would love to do that, but we've only owned it since 2001. So what the idea of us going to build our or write our own book would be impossible, in my opinion, because of the size of our small part of the Zodiac team. So this goes back to those vintage Zodiac collectors and now watchmakers, and we're relying on them. So we're really, really excited to find people like Yuri, and he's opening up my eyes to what Zodiac was. And then he messaged me. We had a conversation a few weeks ago, and he said he could be ready for volume 2 because he's found watches that he didn't know existed. And when I'm saying that we built 250,000 watches back in the 60s and 70s, we have different markets that build different iterations of Zodiac, which we had no idea existed. If you follow me on social media, I found a limited edition that we did with the Dr. Pepper Corporation. It's a Super Seawolf with Dr. Pepper on the dial, or we did one with Harley Davidson, or you find one with Middle Eastern text or European date wheels, things that we would never have seen. And I did a podcast quite similar to this, and I got reached out to by a very, very important person now within my kind of understanding of the brand. His name is Soren. If he's watching, hi Soren, he's in Denmark. And his dad was the distributor for Zodiac in Denmark for 30 years. And so he grew up as a kid, seeing the Calumet, seeing his dad with all these different watches, understanding how big it was and how much of a big part of his dad's life it was. And it resonated with me massively because my kids went through that with my time with Bremont for a decade. But also it educated me when he showed me his dad's collection, how big and how diverse the Zodiac collection was. So, yes, the book is out there, but we haven't written it, but we will not stand in the way of someone like Yuri and the vintage Zodiac collectors because they're too important to the DNA of the brand. We just have to make sure that we respect it and we move it forward the right way.
Yeah, I'll put the name of the book and Yuri's full name in the chat. So if anyone wants to copy and paste that, and you can.
Can I just ask you, where do you see Zodiac in the marketplace now? Who's your competitor you'd like to be as good as, the person above you, and who's sort of like around you or below you, sort of thing? Who do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself with the brands in the marketplace?
I think it's quite tough because we don't make as many as the people that you look at and go, "Wow, we'd love to be there, be where they are." And I don't think we've got the ability to say that that's where we're going to go for, because we are very unique in our price point. If I'm going to bring up the Olympus or the Skin 53,
yeah, I'll make you full screen if you want to show. Have you got any watches again to show?
Yeah,
I know Carl mentioned it, but I'll just
thank you.
Let's have a look at some of them and go through.
This is the Olympus that we did with Worn and Wound. This is $895. This is the SDP 1-11 movement. It's got that very, very cool manta ray case. And then the Skin 53 is the one that I mentioned earlier. That's the best example for me of what the dive watch was. This is the
is it like an MAS 62 sort of kind of Seiko type thing, is it?
You could say that, but I think for us, we were looking at especially the Swiss side of it all and the heritage of this brand. Seiko is always going to be that gateway drug that we all kind of fell into with mechanical watches. Then you are looking up the ladder in terms of price point, but now you've got Seiko Prospects and Presage, and then it goes into Grand Seiko. Like it's a rabbit hole just with that one family. For Zodiac, we would look at somewhere like entry-level Tag Heuer or Hamilton or Tissot, and like, can we at least get somebody within that kind of price point looking at us? But then you start looking up a little bit further because of the way the movement's built and the heritage we've got. there's a lot of brands in there that we aspire to look at and go, wow, wouldn't it be amazing? Because we've got the support of the group around us. But I do think that we have this very unique price point that kind of makes our conversation about our competition quite hard to answer without sounding like looking at the stars and trying to get ahead of yourselves. I think we've got to compete against ourselves first before we can compete against anybody else. We've got to be better than we've been in the last 30, 40 years. And I think we're kind of there in terms of the building blocks are right. We like you showed earlier, we're the astrographic, and it might not be everybody's cup of tea in terms of case shape or size, but in the 70s, and then we did the reissue in the mid 2000s.
They were in. That was it. That was in, wasn't it?
Yeah, massively. So we've got a long way to go to kind of understand where our place is, but we've kind of not cornered the market, but we do really well with color, and we do well with these limited editions, are crazy colorways. But what I want for our type of community that are on this call now or on this video is they get to look past the color and see the hands, the bezel, the movement. How are we building it? Is it respectful to the past? And I think we've got it right. We just have to build the core correctly, find the right partners, and then we can go from there, hopefully.
Could you give us a close-up of that Super Wolf? Because that's an interesting color combination.
Oh, the one that I just showed you. This is
the one you just showed you.
But this was
that's a brave color combination.
Like
those two, Mike, I have to say. I commentated today. It was a brave color combination. That green and the like red orange, isn't it?
So that was nicknamed the watermelon by our collectors. We do a Pro Diver, which has got black bezel, very, very highly loomed bezel, and markers and numerals, and that is the basis of the Pro Diver. We had, I've got a couple that were around. It's just nuts. But we had the watermelon, we had blue, we had a creamsicle version, but we only made 100 of these colors each. And this is when we were last year, 2 years ago, and we didn't make enough. We only made 100, and the company who built our bezel said, no, we can't do that anymore. And then COVID came, and then they were gone for us. So that became like an impromptu limited edition. We have now brought out the Pro Diver Titanium, which has still got some pretty good color within it, but we're only making 282 of them. And then next year, we're going to introduce a more sober, but there's a color scheme which isn't as out there as that one is. But the Pro Diver will come and go with color. And I think that's one thing that we have in our locker, which a lot of the brands don't have, is that obviously if you are Swiss, and we're built in Switzerland, but if the company is completely immersed in Switzerland, that's one thing. You try and keep it cool and conservative. We are obviously built there, but we have our main office for Fossil and then Zodiac in Dallas, Texas, which is where I am now, which is why we can kind of have that outlook on color and fashion. And something like this that came out just a week or so ago, or a month or so ago. This is pure summer. I mean, this is going to be part of the core collection, but we've only built 500 of these, but it's not limited in number. We just build batches, so it could come and go. So we with some of these pieces that are classed as seasonal, I don't think Swiss brands traditionally would like to do that. But as long as we've got the anchors like the Skin 53 and the colorways that mean something to our story, I think we can kind of get away with it. And that's why we have to do things correctly, because it can very quickly get away from you, which is not what happened in the last few years. But we did so many limited editions with great partners like Hodinkee and Worn and Wound that the core was sometimes missed, and we didn't build enough of each model. Now we do. And now we will celebrate it. So if you see something as crazy as this, what I want is that every single person knows that it comes from a place that's of, maybe purity within the watch community, but the colors and the colorways should always be within Zodiac, because we've done it since the 60s and 70s, and it's not anything new. We've just maybe turned up the volume a little bit.
So what inspires those colors?
Oh, sorry. Go on, Palmer.
What actually inspires the combination of colors? You got there's like a blue and a white there. There's like you say, the watermelon. There's lots of different color combinations I've seen on your website as well. What is it? What would inspire each one?
I'm lucky that I've got my traveling collection with me right now. But
excellent.
If you take something like this, which is the baby blue and this really cool navy blue dial, which is really lovely.
Yeah, I like that.
In the 60s, we did a Seawolf, which had that kind of Bakelite feel. It had that baby blue bezel. And so there's always been color. And at a time like the 50s and 60s, when color really wasn't around, we were bringing it in. So we had Pepsi bezels. We did splashes of orange, splashes of red. the thing with owning, if you look through some of the watches that were done in the 80s and 90s, and then when we took it in 2001, color was a massive part of that era. And even though some of the watches might not be desirable, some of those colorways and some of those splashes of difference stayed. And I do think that watches, at price points, just under $1,000 to just under 2,000. But when you can't believe Brian started Zodiac. Thanks, Tom. I love
and it shows you're doing something right. He says, yeah, it shows you're doing something right. Yeah,
there's a lot there, but every brand's done it over time, right? But everything should look like something. But the colorways, we just don't want to take ourselves too seriously in that way. And you can buy a pair of shoes or a car, and that colorway is you. The thing that we've got with watches is the price point so inoffensive, I think, in a way, is that this should be a watch within somebody's collection. And so if you are out if you're lucky enough to go out on the water in the summer and you want to wear something summery, wear this. If you are, I wore this in Las Vegas, and when it was underneath the loom, it's just nuclear and it looked great under the neon light. So why not have fun with it? It's watches. No one needs them. That's not why we're in the industry or why we like the watches.
Yeah.
Because it's something that represents us. And hopefully the colorways, this is just my opinion, the colorways should not detract from the fact that we're doing this bit of fun with something which is 140 years old. It's just the fact that we can have fun with it now and take it on.
Yeah, so what's your what's your biggest seller? What's your staple seller out of the? Yeah, is there one that everybody is it a skin diver? Maybe, I don't know. Or is it
not yet? The skin diver, we didn't make a ton of them, but the skin diver over that since I've started, and I didn't think it's myself, but it's people like you guys that I've spoken to have said, what do you think Zodiac is? And I show the skin. But in terms of like the compression, I feel like a guy on the beach trying to sell your watch out of my trench coat.
Yeah.
But if you've got the compression, this is the 40mm version of the Super Seawolf. That has about 7 or 8 different colorways now that are part of the core. That is the biggest part of what Zodiac is. It's pretty consistent throughout it all. But when we do a limited edition, especially a partner limited edition, they just fly, and they go out. They can sell out in minutes or days.
Wow.
But in terms of that part of the collection, it's pretty hard actually, because it's quite consistent throughout it all. But we'll do that blue and white one, and we just released it a few weeks ago, and it was great because everyone was going through a heat wave and they were outside on the beach in their shorts, so people bought it, and that was grand. But I think it's the compression family.
But that's not a compressor like we think of, like a super compressor, is it? Like the old one with an internal? No. It's just the name. It's just no. Just what you name it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that come in like? What kind of money do they come in at?
So on the strap, this one starts at, this is US dollars, sorry, $11.95. On the bracelet, that's $14.95. What's quite lovely about our Jubilee bracelet as well, it's a good looking one. It's got no lag. It's not one of those ones that kind of dips and falls. We've got this lovely deploying style clasp. But what a lot of people sometimes miss is we've got these expandable diving.
Right. That's how they've done the extension. That's an interesting extension, isn't it? That's good.
Yeah, and this bracelet, if you buy it by itself, and it's also got
a quick release
as well.
Oh wow, that's good.
That's $295 on its own. So you should, with every compression, buy it on a bracelet because it's better money.
Yes.
Then you buy your tropic straps, and we've got whites and blues and oranges and greens, but we've got more and more that will come. So make your watch your own. But I'm sure you might be like me, where I'm a big believer that you buy the watch and then the straps you make it your own with a bit of NATO.
Yeah, I'm a big one. You can have a whole new collection by just changing all your straps. Yeah. Do you have any input into actually designing the watch? Do you have a big input in sort of like putting something forward or changing something when you say it, and you have an input or anything like that?
Not yet, but the team is so small, and so I've only been there 6 months. But what is quite lovely is that the team, as we've been around it, everything's set for the years ahead. We off camera, I'll show you a few things for the future, and hopefully you'll like it. But that conversation is ever evolving. And one thing which I've liked is I can have my opinion like you guys can, but what I think we've listened to really well is the vintage community. They come up to us and ask for certain models or certain styles, and it might not be this year or next, but we're definitely trying to get some things written and drawn down. So I think the more and more that I'll be with this brand, I have an opinion, and like everybody that works with Zodiac, we all just want it to be the best of us. But I'm not a designer. I just know I'm just a watch guy who likes what I like. So.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your journey in watches? Sorry, Mike. So what got you your journey, your actual collecting journey, where did, I mean, you can go for as far back as you want, but what
I was a kid.
really
I
got
got
you
a
into?
fossil. Well, I got a fossil. It was blue, and it had the numbers just ticked down. And then, I think I do remember a flick flack in my life somewhere. And then I started to work away traveling, and then it was those big Adidas and those, and it became part of your DNA. When I started to work with that LVMH group, and it wasn't promoting just LVMH brands, it had everything. The first real watch that I got was a Carrera, non-chronograph Carrera, and I sold it a few years ago, and I hate that I did that. But it was really that first understanding that when I put it on, it wasn't putting on a flick flack, it wasn't putting on a sports watch.
Plastic watch, yeah.
Everything changed from that one watch. And then the more and more I was in the duty-free market in the Caribbean, it wasn't just the fact going into the stores and seeing them lined up like they are. It was seeing the old guy or the woman who was wearing their son's watch or the young guy who wanted their first watch. It was everything. So you could find a gentleman wearing a bum bag, a fanny pack for Americans, jean shorts and a horrible Hawaiian shirt. But then he'd go, but look at this. Or the guy who's got more money than God that would put on an old Timex and like, well, this is what I wear every day. There should be never anything about it that's to be judged. And so I took it from that romantic side of it all, that there's something for everybody. And it ended up being the thing that I liked. And there was diamonds and jewelry and all the stuff you could sell on the duty-free market world, but it was watches because it resonated with me. And I liked the community that at that time, there was no social media, there's no podcast on this. And so when I started to find professionally my feet, social media started to come, and suddenly you got to meet people on the road who were like-minded. And then the Red Bar Cruise came, and you find people that could throw down a Swatch and a Patek in the same table, and you'd buy each other a beer and go, well done, I wish I had your watch. And they're saying at the same time, because there's no judgment. There is obviously that stigma with what watches could be, and I think that's fine. If you want to buy them for that reason and you've got the money and it is a statement of where you are in life, celebrate it. My personal part of the world is I like the independent side of it all and that individual love of it.
So, Michael, are you going to remake the Space Tronic for the 60s? Forbin Colossus is asking.
Good question. I saw one of them recently, and it's unbelievable. It's not in the plans yet, but like I said earlier, there's a lot in the back catalogue from Yuri's book that we're going through, and again, listening to the community and some of the partners. The first couple that we'd probably look at would be to kind of diversify what we've got in terms of sports luxury with the dive watch to a little bit more dress with Olympus, and then we'll see what the next bit goes. But hopefully the direction we're going in is good for us in terms of movements, so we can make the watch work and look as perfect as possible. But there's a ton of complications and there's a ton of aesthetics to go for. That particular one right now is not in the plans. But yeah, I can never say never on it.
Never say. And can you give us any clues to anything you new that's coming out that you can tell us about? Is there anything you can give us a teaser? I mean, we had Christopher Ward on last week, Matt, and he gave us a little teaser about
snippet,
things.
yeah.
You didn't tell us, a little snippet, just
Very
get people
hard.
Juices flowing. Is there anything you can tell us?
Well, if it wasn't for Revolution yesterday, I'd start talking about an outer space material. But what was quite nice about them kind of slipping that in there is the first watch that you'll see is a one-off for one retail partner that we've worked for years. What maybe didn't come across is that we've got 3 versions of it in 3 different colorways. So we've got the ability. We bought a piece of meteorite from a broker, which is bloody hard and expensive to do, and we've split it into these wonderful dials. So every watch should be unique. But I would say that's the best I can do. But in terms of October, have a little look-see at some of the different case materials. But I'm not going to tell you because it's so cool. It is the next watch that I'll own. I think it's for the money, very, very hard to not love it. And it's very different to any Zodiac in terms of colorway that you would have seen before. There you go. That's a nice way of saying it.
Now, Michael, you just gave us a sneak peek. You said October, so now I know when to get my my checkbook ready.
Listen,
piggy bank out. Yeah.
Everything should have come out over the last couple of months. But the nice thing about never telling anybody when release date should be is you don't let anybody down.
Yeah,
that's true. I have a question for you about the Olympus line. Is that manta ray case? Is that something from the past? I don't recognize it.
Yeah, it's what we did in 1969, I believe. And actually, if you can just, I don't know if it's the best way to see it just there, but it kind of a unique.
Screen you. Yeah.
Unique to have that crown on the two, but if you just look at it from the front, it's terrible there. But you got that manta ring wingspan. What a lot of people don't say, and this might not be the best because I've got it on a NATO, but it's a rounded case back and it sits really lovely, and those lugs really are elongated, so it sits well. The Olympus case, though, and we've done some things which I haven't found one. So if any of your listeners have got one, I'd love to see it in real life. They kind of mix two worlds in with this. We found mystery dial Olympuses with colorways from the 70s, but this case was good in 69 and going forward for not just the traditional masculine watch or the gold style watch, but we did very small, I think 30, what was a millimeter? Something very, very small. I couldn't even tell you. When I saw it, it felt like I was holding a grain of rice that was for a woman, which I think the regular collection we've got now, we don't put any kind of gender on it, but those watches were very, very much for a female market. And that was the Olympus case. That was our way of doing our maybe more showy style. But that manta ray case is very synonymous with us. And again, that's because a lot of us don't really know the history of Zodiac all too well. So these releases now get a chance to kind of highlight and shine a light on what we did in the 60s and 70s. But it's a big part of our back catalog.
Yeah, no, I really like it because, you know, for me, a watch sort of has to have a little personality for it to catch my attention. And it sort of reminds me a little bit of sort of the Accutron Space View sort of shape.
Yeah,
and
that whole era was very similar across the board. People who were not doing the normal round stuff, and us very much with the Olympus, were in that kind of bucket. But then when you did the original astrographic with those mystery dials, it changed the game again. We weren't going to space, but we were making that space age style. So that was the evolution: dive to dress to unique, and then the quartz crisis happened, and no one knew what to do. But even at that point, Zodiac kind of gave it a go. They made the first electric LCD style watch for the world. That's how I understand it. And I've seen that within. I don't think that was in Yuri's book, but I'll try and find you the link so at least you can maybe highlight that with this story. But we've always tried to do things, and it's just the fact that the last, well, maybe not now, but when the watch was owned in the 90s and the early 2000s by our previous ownership and now us, is we were still trying to find our feet. But we're kind of there now.
Okay, so staying on the Olympus, Mike, like you say, it's a manta ray shape. I was wondering what the shape was, and it sits in your dress watch section on your website, and it looks so good on the leather strap. And now looking at it on a NATO, it looks really cool as almost like a field watch, and the manta ray suggests it's got diving kind of qualities to it as well. So that's quite a all-round watch, actually. That covers a lot of bases, doesn't it?
Well, every single one of our watches, the minimum is 100 meters. So they're all diving watches, essentially. I mean, they're all sorted out. And this is the Olympus on my wrist, which is.
Hold on, let me full screen you. There we go.
I've just got. So this is actually the one that was done by Worn and Wound. This is a limited. They did this green kind of camo version. I'm terrible at this. Camo version in blue dial as well. But you mean I've got some good thick chunky wrists, but this sits really well, and as you can tell, if I've got that right, it actually, even on NATO, it doesn't sit too high. On its regular leather strap, it really does hug the wrist really nicely. And so what you've seen on the website, we've got a gold-plated version, a black version, and the new blue version. And that's our dress version. And then we've got this with Worn and Wound. And hopefully later this year, we get a chance to showcase our own version of that. Military, vintage, field watch. I think that's the way to do it.
So, knowing that the original Seawolf went deeper than the 50 fathoms, have you brought out a diver or planning to bring out a diver with a super depth rating yet?
No, we're not there yet. I don't think technologically. The Pro Diver collection, we did 300 meters. I don't think we're going to try and change the world just yet in terms of our technology going as deep as some of the crazy stuff that you see out there.
No.
For what we are, and especially with some of the colorways that come from it, I think having a 300-meter diving watch that's ISO certified and chronometer certified is a big step for us.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's good. 300 is good. Yeah, I mean, how many people do actually really, I'm going to quote the FXD with 200 meters or whatever it is. It's, that's it. Simple as that.
The size of my ears, the deepest I go is the bathtub. That's about it, really. So.
Yeah. In the vintage era, the Seawolf was 200 and the Super Seawolf, wasn't it 750?
Yeah.
And was there a difference in the actual proportions of the case, or was it really just a depth rating?
It was the innovations in the case back and how it can be sealed. That was the difference. That's the reason why it was kind of took on by the US Navy and the Navy SEALs. It just could do it. And like I say, I mean, yes, we've got the ability to go probably deeper than what most people do now, but at the time it was a proper tool. So that's great. I mean, that's the thing. We've got this credibility and we did it. We just have to live up to those expectations in this modern era of it all.
Oh, 300 meters is plenty. There's nobody who needs anything more than that.
Hey, I'm putting on this astrographic now. You've kind of got me wanting to put it in my brain. It's like playtime.
Ding, ding,
ding. Yeah, speaking of quartz, I've always been fond of the Grand Rally. Are you looking to expand or do a mechanical chronograph or expand the quartz? Because it's got such a unique design, that Grand Rally. It's a familiar design, but it's also unique.
So I saw the Grand Rally and I love the aesthetic. And I think it's probably one of the best looking chronographs that we could have done at that time. It probably goes to maybe Palm's question in terms of input that we would have as a team. We want to push the brand forward and mechanically, and STP being ours and having this movement that's ours. I would love to celebrate it. I think when someone says what Zodiac and you have a Grand Rally and you can have a price point starting at $395, I think it was. But in all essence, I think that we should talk about the mechanical side of us to get the narrative correct. There are still Grand Rallies available on the website and some partners still do it. We've got a few that are still left. That will be phased out. And the conversation right now will be, in the future, should we bring it back with our own chronograph movement or abort movement? My gut's telling me that we're not going to bring the Grand Rally for a while. The aesthetic is very much from the 90s and the Tag Heuer kind of era when the distributor of Tag Heuer had us. And so that story and rally and racing, not that it's a great thing to have in your back catalogue. I do just think as a brand director, that's that kind of title that I say, for me, it could muddy the water in terms of the story. Because if we can get dive right, dress right, and then what's coming with the materials, if we try and add the rally and the driving side, I think sometimes it can get a bit confusing. But I do think it's one of the best looking watches we've done in years. It's like because when it first came out originally, we had the Sea Dragon. We didn't even have the Super Sea. We had the Sea Dragon, and the Grand Rally came after that. And then we now got this right. But I don't think it's a wrong model. I just think that what our narrative should be now is more STP, mechanical. Let's get the story correct so people understand us. Yeah,
because it's still, the Grand Rally still has the look and feel. It's got the design language from the other watches. It's not like the Zodiacs of the 90s, which were very exaggerated, very of the 90s kind of.
I don't know if you saw on my social media, one of my colleagues, who's one of the designers for Zodiac, he found the Buzzsaw Super Seawolf. Did you see that on any of my? Have a look up. Come have a look at my social media at Mike Pearson 6. But if you do type in the Zodiac Super Seawolf or Seawolf Buzzsaw, there's this horrible bezel, which when I put it on, I was like, this is disgusting. I love it so much. I had to, I'm sourcing one right now. So the 90s, like when you look at the cartoons we'd watch from He-Man or Thundercats, and then you look at some of the aesthetic, I don't know, the 90s has this thing going on right now where it's ugly and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, like the animal watches.
100%, but that Buzzsaw maybe is of that era, and the Grand Rally maybe came from that aesthetic, I think, yeah. There it is.
Is that the one with the black dot? Yeah, I was just looking at is that someone? Yeah.
The red dot I think that's what you're saying. We did this one thing in the 90s, which I would love to bring back for the future. They had this series of watches where they had a colored dot in between the 4 and the 5, and that dot color determined the family of the watch it was in.
Oh, wow. That's
fantastic concept, but also the watches weren't brilliant. Mostly they were quartz as well. But the red dot is a very sought after color just because it stands out. Now, my uneducated eyes years ago, I was like, oh, what is that? Is that an AM/PM? Is it what is it? But it's just literally a dot of color, but it's unique to Zodiac's DNA. So there's so much to be said about even things like that, which might not be as world renowned or as important as the Seawolf or what the Olympus might have been or the Astrographic, but design wise and story wise, I love it. I think it's really cool. So yeah, there's lots to explore and enjoy. But I'm glad you brought up the Grand Rally, because maybe I'm guilty of maybe dismissing it because it's a very big, very, very big part of who we are. But I think narrative wise, I think we should go the way we are.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking vintage chronograph, isn't it? It's sort of a chronograph dress watch as well. It could probably play off as. I've always liked the design of it, so that cushion case and stuff. But yeah, it would be great as a mechanical as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So if there was one brand you could delete off the planet, what would it be?
You're horrible for asking it. You are.
Horrible, terrible question. Yeah.
I think Red Shovel, me and you, bottle of whiskey. Let's do it properly, face to face, and we'll have a proper chat.
We'll have a chat.
He's one of our panelists actually. Normally,
one of our panelists normally. Yeah, exactly. He'll eat the box. He'll eat the box of 19 crimes, and he'll have a
case of wine out.
Easily. Case of wine out. That's a regular thing.
There's a few brands out there that we can all not like, but there are 700 proper watch brands out there. So we can all like and dislike one. I think the only thing I'd always say is I'm not a big fan of design copying. So any brand that does that, I'm not. Homage is one thing, but when they blatantly go, "That's nice, let's do it."
Yes.
I wish that would go away. I really do wish that would go away. But no.
Are you a fan or a non-fan, should we say, of the Moonswatch? What's your thoughts on the Moonswatch? I mean, I read last week, I was amazed. 50% of proper Omega Moon watches have been increased by 50% of the proper Omega Moon watch due to sales of the Moonswatch. 50%. That's bonkers. I mean, does that impress you? Is that something that, in the watch industry?
I thought it was brilliant.
I
thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Marketing genius, yeah.
Marketing wise, but I thought aesthetic. I thought it. I mean, like I said at the beginning, who you own by Fossil? Swatch and Omega. That is a really wonderful way of kind of showcasing the best of them with what they did. It is still plastic fashion, but also paying homage to the best of them. I just thought it was quite genius the way they launched it. I thought it was brilliant when they did it because of Watches and Wonders. I thought it had all of the watch industry talking, which is what we want. It had people going into stores. Even if the Swatch stores are not where you've ever been into, they went into malls that people might not have got into for years because of COVID or just because they hate shopping. I do not like the fact that they might not be living up to the words of what they first said in terms of how you can buy it, that it is not limited, blah, blah, blah. So that bit there, I'm not sure. But in terms of the initial buzz and boost, and I thought the watches were quite cool. So, yeah, I'm a fan.
Excellent. And can we ask you what your personal watch day to day? If you were, do you collect vintage or do you collect another brand completely, or what do you wear yourself? If you're not wearing a Zodiac, in your own free time, what are you wearing? Personal watch.
I would. Since I've started with this brand, I've only worn the Zodiac brand. But
come on now.
No. I was with Bremont for a decade, so I've got some watches that I wore when my kids were born and I was married in. But I'm going to not say Bremont. I'm going to give another small brand a big shout out because I think they're fantastic, and it's Vertex. Don Cochran and what he's built as a brand. I'm a big fan of his family history, and I think he's doing it a justice. So Vertex is what I wear, and the bronze is superb, and the single pusher chronograph I love. So Vertex.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, have we, any more of the panelists got any wonderful questions?
I've got a question for Mike. More of a not a personal question, but just more about yourself.
You can ask anything.
So branding. So you're obviously director of branding. You've obviously had a long career in branding. Did you want to go into watches as your primary focus, or was branding for whatever you just love branding?
I was going to be a teacher, and then I had a very nasty car crash, and that kind of changed my life in terms of give it a go, give life a go, and that was the travel side. And then I fell into watches, and then you meet people, and it sent you to America. It's always that sliding doors thing, but I do think that I'm very lucky every day that I found it. What I do think that is quite prevalent with me personally is that I did fall out of love with watches because of finding family, and other brands would come in and you try other brands and it's not a good fit. For me, this branding thing or this building of something is what I'm absolutely loving. And at almost 42 years of age, I feel like a 25-year-old again, just starting in the industry, because every time you come to a company like this, it might not be for you, but when you find something which is just in synergy with your thought process, there's nothing more exciting for me. So I didn't want to do watches. I never found it it found me, and then I tried to just love it. And it's given me, obviously, my wife and my family, but it's also given me some of the best times of my life. I mean, I built Bremon by going around America and watching baseball and finding Aston Villa fans all over America and watching us lose most weeks. But the friends that I found in this industry will be my friends to the day I die. So yeah, I love it.
Oh, excellent. I heard a few of those things you referenced in the 4th and 20 podcast that you came on. You mentioned that you went through the windscreen, didn't you, in that accident? So it was quite
it was actually the side window. Some guy
okay.
Some guy hit me, and I didn't have a seatbelt on, so I got lifted up, and the car passed me by. Which I'm a big fella, so that was a good space to fall through. But I was lucky.
Here and
well, it wasn't the best, but we did it. So we got
and just another thing, and if to get into branding, any advice to anyone who does want to make that change, a career change, or just starting out?
Branding's different, I think, because I started off just pure selling, but I think when you find something that you're selling or a company that you're selling for or working within, sorry, my message is going nuts right now. Your skill set will be determined, and I think if you're the kind of person that can tell a story and understand the heart of it, then branding will find you, or being able to build a brand will find you.
And you want to remain in branding, or do you want to move? Would you like to move into a different area within the company? I mean, you sound like you found your niche now, and this is going to be the company for you. Till you'd like to think so. Have you any aspirations for moving around the board of directors or something? Or,
Probably not for a while. This is like a
6 months in. I know. But...
Yeah, it's feeling as young as I do, and this challenge is massive. Like 6,000 watches to 10,000 watches to what we were. Like I had a conversation with the company director who's very, very high up, and he's just like, "What are your ambitions for the future?" And I'm just like, "Well, because we've got other brands, and the Fossil company is just huge in terms of its capabilities, and other brands could come to Fossil and want us to do what we might do with Zodiac. But wouldn't that be exciting to be able to build this company and then have that respect from other mechanical companies and maybe do that? But for me right now, I have no other iteration apart from being the Zodiac guy, because there's only a few of us, and so this team needs to grow and our retail network needs to grow. But if we've got people like you and your listeners understanding it and liking it, or maybe not even liking it but understanding it and respecting it, I think we've got something good in our hands.
Yeah, well, I think you've got great potential on that, because you've got all the pieces in the right places. Because even with, let's say, some people might look upon Fossil and be like, oh, look, it's sort of a smaller company shadowing, but it means that you've got financial backing. And so, you're a stable company, you've got the provenance and the prestige of history. And for me, the most important part also is, as you said, you've got a great name. There's so many wonderful brands that pop out there, and they've run out of names, and they've run out of symbols, and they've run out of icons. The old Zodiac name and the Zodiac, the insignia you guys use, I think it's just timeless and beautiful. So I think you've got all the pieces to really build up the brand and make it even better than it is.
Well, thank you very much. I did Scottish watches when I first started with the brand, and Ricky, as forthright as he can be, he was like, "You've got the easiest job in the world." So because it is, I do think it's all there. We've just got to glue it together.
Yeah, Ricky and Dave are friends of the channel. We like Ricky and Dave. There's great guys, those two.
I know, he surprised me coming on Sam's show, and I was like, "What are you bloody doing on here?" But he's good, and every I think he's being quiet, and then he'll just send me some abuse on WhatsApp, and I'm like, "There he is. He's one of the good guys."
Yeah, I mean,
definitely, they're both great guys. Yeah,
you've got Fossil behind you. I mean, I don't know. Some people some people disagree, but Amiga have got big groups behind them, and they're not. They're doing quite well, aren't they? So it's good to have a massive company behind you, isn't it? Really,
But more than anything, it's the one that I love is the fact that they now see what it could be, and you've always got to move the needle. But if someone goes, "What's going on over there?" and then the marketing team and the development team and all the bigwigs go, "All right, we can do something with this." That means they'll support your ideas, and that's exciting. You're not fighting, through pea soup. You're actually having good conversations to move it forward. So that's how it feels. Anyway.
I mean, it's no different than Seiko and Grand Seiko. You've got the company. You just need to make yourself better than the rest of your product. So I said, if you guys are truly trying to innovate and make some new dials and some new metals and really make your watch, one of a kind, I think it'll shine.
Well, thank you very much. We'll try not to let you down. There will be some watches that we'd say in England are Marmite watches. You either love it or you hate it. There's some colorways that could be a bit different, but we'll never stop trying to push. That's for sure.
That's great.
Have we got any more questions from anyone in the chat who's got any questions regarding?
There was one from Thomas Burnett.
Okay, I'll let
earlier
you find
on,
that.
actually.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. So for me, the identity of the Super Seawolf comes from their beautiful coloured bezels, which are copied by many. Why just stick to limited editions? There would surely be a demand for more.
Limited editions will still continue. Colorways will still continue. We've got partnerships that want to celebrate their companies or their channel or their palette. That won't go away. The only thing that I don't want to do is just rely on that for the company. I want there to be anchors to those colors, because the colors are one thing, but also if you look at the hands, the numerals, the bezel, the shape, that is still Zodiac. And that sometimes gets missed with just color and just limited. And so if we can get the colorways around a core, then at least we can be a better company for it. So yeah, I agree, Thomas. All the limiteds that come out, we all want, because we don't make many, but we would just keep on running in the same direction if we don't have something to say, this is us. I just want us to be more than just limiteds now, because that's what Zodiac was always through history. It was a staple diet through all the best stores all across the world. It's side by side with some of the most iconic companies. Just right now, we've got this buzz because of these limited editions, and I want to make sure that is still going because it's fun, but I just don't want that to be just what Zodiac is.
One final question: Is there any type of watch that you want to add to the collection that's not been done before? Any a bit sort of sideways out there, or some sort of style
Not
watch
sideways.
that you?
I wouldn't say sideways. I just want I want the moon phase back. That's going to be my eventual goal. But that's years and years down the road. I think that is the best of a mechanical movement for me. I think GMT is the ultimate movement. But in terms of the romance of timekeeping and telling time through the position of the moon, that's my ultimate dress watch, my favorite complication. And I'd love to go back and do that.
Right. So that is something that you'd, as long as you stay with the company, you'd be educating them and pushing them towards bringing back, and it could be a possibility. It's
way down the line, seeing what STP can do and what because I would like that to be ours. I think that's one thing that I want to get to that point. So thanks, Jason.
Okay, Jason says, yeah,
Jason's wife will buy one.
So you stuck to STP as far as that movement's concerned. You wouldn't step away to get a moon phase movement from someone else who's got one to fill that dream.
My goal for that particular watch is that we're in a position that we can develop that caliber. I think that's the way to go. If we can then do GMTs, then that's the next step for the base three-hander. Then we've got a complication, and then if we're off and running and we've got the money coming through, then we can reinvest it into a proper caliber for some fun. We were one of the first to do moon phase, one of the first to do power reserve. That's way back in the day, way before Seawolf. So we wouldn't be doing it from any other reason apart from going back to celebrate pre-Seawolf. That's what I want. I want that 70 years of history that sometimes get overlooked to be known. And for me, that would be look into the skies and look into the Zodiac.
I mean, a lot of people have said to me, they fondly remember the old 70s Zodiac. I've had a few people who I know who watches who have said that. They hark back to the kind of stuff that you two have got there and the old style. So, it must... Yeah, it would work. Obviously, people would love it.
I've got 2 moon phases in the collection. So
I think you and I need to be friends. I've got a lot in common.
Hey, we're already following each other on Instagram.
Oh, jeez, I know that. I'm so terrible. I'm so sorry. There's kids and wiener dogs in the way. I forget.
So Thomas Wiener, thank you for the super chat, £4.49. So thank you for your insight with Zodiac, Brand Michael. Great show, everyone.
Thank you,
Jason, $10 super chat. Sorry, did I bring it back up again? Have a round of me, fellas. Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. Really
I would say for Jason, if he does something called a podcast called Watch Rolling. He's a veteran. He has a wonderful focused on veteran views, and he's also a big watch guy. So follow that guy. He's the man.
Excellent. Sure. Thank you very much, Jason. Right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you. everyone for getting involved in the chat and asking wonderful
Brilliant.
questions and joining. It's been really, really good. Thank you to my wonderful panel. Thank you to Palm. Thank you to Sam. Thank you to Pocket, and thank you again to Michael. I want to give a shout out to anyone. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching, new to the channel, please subscribe. If you feel like helping the channel out, please, if you really want to, buy yourself a little membership, and it just helps running the channel if you really want to. Thank you so much. We'll be back on Saturday for another show. So I'm going to play the outro now. We want to stay in the back room and have a chat if you can, Michael. It'd be great. And I'll say goodbye to everybody, and we will see you on Saturday.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.